New edition of Warriors Plus Minus. I'm supposed to be headed to LA, but my boss is like, let's do a podcast.
You must do a podcast to qualify, to be eligible for the All-Star game. Or else, no.
Oh, well, it's not like I'm rushing for no access.
Slater's a guaranteed slot. He's right in there.
Yeah,
Borderline. We're not so sure.
This is Marcus Thompson
Skills challenge or something.
Here with Tim Kawakami for Warriors Plus Minus.
We're in a bank vault. We're literally in an old bank vault in Berkeley or something like that. It's
Next
cool.
Space, right? That's what it's called?
Yeah. I like it. Parking space was kind of tough, but that's
all I'm saying is, though, didn't we pay for this?
Yeah.
So Ben paid. Why are we giving them free advertising?
I don't know.
If they give it to us for free, we can shout them out.
But we're trying to get it free next time.
All right, man. Anyway, we finally here. Steve Kerr is probably safely in Hawaii by now.
Mentally, he's been in Hawaii maybe for the last week. He was on the
first thing smoking.
Yep.
I'm sure.
I hope he has a good time. He's been talking about it so much. Like sometimes you talk about it so much, you anticipate it so much, and then it's just another.
It's like being really hungry and like can't wait to eat. Then when you finally eat, it's like all right,
man. No, he's going to enjoy this. I wonder, he's going to be there the whole time, probably?
Oh, no question.
6 days, 7 days?
I bet you Andre Iguodala made his tea time this morning somewhere.
Of course. He didn't make it this morning. He made it a couple days ago. He's out there hitting the ball. He can play 36 today. No question.
No question.
We just got to figure out where it is.
But they are, well behind the pace that they've set from before. Steve Kerr team has never finished with fewer than 67 wins.
Yep.
They would have to go 23-1 to do that.
They may not do that.
They're not the number one seed as of right now. It looks most in question. At this point, not having a number one seed is obviously the topic. Daryl Morey's feeling really good about it. The Rockets GM.
He likes Portland Trail Blazers, is what he seemed to tweet out last night.
So, worry meter. Where do you stand? You're panicking? Is it panic time?
No. I mean, unless you don't have faith that Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson are four of the greatest players in the league, and that they're somehow shaken by this, they're somehow taking a step back. We all have written about the lack of scoring from everyone else, that Iguodala's fallen off a little bit. I mean, we will continue to write this. It makes us less sure of where they're going. But you throw those four players up there, I just have every belief that they will figure it out. They will get the energy back. They won't continue to get behind by 20 points in the first quarter. And I think they're just tested in the playoffs, and some of the guys, some of the teams they're looking at they've either beaten already in the playoffs or aren't tested in the playoffs. So I don't think there's a great amount of worry even in the franchise, other than they're not as locked in as you would have thought by having Nick Young, Omri Caspi, some of the other additions that have just not worked out, and that makes the front players, the frontline guys, look less good, because if they have a bad game, they lose, as opposed to in past years, a couple guys have a bad game, then they've got secondary players who can make plays for them, and then everyone looks better.
I don't know that it's worth worrying about. I mean, really, what we're talking about, the bottom line is we're talking about a Game 7 in Houston or Game 7
in 1 and 2. I think, I've always said, Kerr disagrees with me, but I think having 1 and 2 at home is a real big cushion, because you just know you're starting that series at home.
But I think for the Warriors, though, it's better to start on the road. Just the way
maybe it's just me and my travel plans.
I think it's right for most teams.
Yeah.
But if you start with 2 games at home against the Warriors and you lose one, and now you got to go back to Oracle. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
You're right. The Bulls were kind of like that.
Absolutely,
right?
No question. Like, if we take one, that's the series. You have to win both of your games. I don't know that it's the worst thing in the world. I think in the end, if they play well enough to beat Houston in Houston, then there's no problem. And whether they're 1 seed or 2, if they don't do that, it doesn't matter anyway, right, 1 seed or 2 or not. But I just don't think I think Houston, they don't fully feel like we can't have a Game 7 at Houston. It's going to kill us. Not like they felt it against Cleveland, but I don't know if they're really that urgent about it.
I agree with you.
I think Curry is, but I don't know if they
I agree
are.
with you. I think they should start thinking that, because Houston is not the same Houston team.
No.
It's a Chris. Again, I mean, people are down on Chris Paul. He's never made even I think a West Finals.
He's probably playing the best of his life.
Yeah, he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy. He makes shots when stuff bogs down. Like the old thing, the ball's going to Harden. Andre's got him. Draymond wanders over. The ball knocks the ball out of him. They go off on the fast break. That's how they beat the Rockets. They just knew where the ball was going to be. When you've got Harden and Chris Paul, that changes the dynamic. There's different angles, and I think the Warriors are better than the Rockets. I don't think it's the same, like, oh, it's the Rockets, the Warriors are going to walk through them. So whether this is whoever's got home court, whether it's whoever gets dinged up, or whether it's, whatever the factors we're throwing out there, I just think it's a lot closer, and it's played out a lot closer than it's ever been in the past. And Chris Paul is a huge reason. Luke Mute is a big reason. PJ Tucker's a reason. Clint Capella playing well is a reason. This is not the same Rockets team, and I think there might be some sense in the Warriors locker room that it's just the same Rockets team. They might be right. I don't think there's a large evidence that they are to this point, including the 2 victories at Houston, and one of them where the Warriors were like, no, they knew it was a big game. They were up for it. They won, and they didn't. They got smoked. So I just think there is that whole idea that it's just the Rockets they don't have to worry about. I think that might be kind of getting thrown into the shredder right now. Just from our point of view, maybe not from the Warriors' point of view, but from our point of view.
I feel a little bit like them though, in that, I mean, when I watch the Rockets play, it is the ultimate of regular season basketball.
Yep.
I mean, they're just chucking and dancing, and everything is fluid
Mike
and
D'Antoni teams, have done this before.
I'm just like, does that work in the playoffs, in the latter rounds of the playoffs? We've seen what happens to James Harden when that playoff defense and you don't get the calls and things aren't going right. We've seen how he responds to that. But here's why I do think it's different. Because they remind me of a little bit of the 2016 Cavaliers, where at some point in that series, they just got so hungry. Mm-hmm. And J.R. Smith is playing the defense of his life. Kyrie Irving is playing the defense.
Kyle Korver.
Yeah, right. Kevin Love. I mean, at some point, they just simply were hungry. And I feel like there's a good chance Houston can be that team like that. You got Chris Paul and you got James Harden. And if they get down in the series, or if they somehow get up, and if they sense that we've been here before, they're going to ridicule us if we lose this series, is there another level they can get to? And they're Hall of Famers. Of course there's another level. That's the part where you're like, you can't look at this the same. It's 2 of them. It's not just James Harden.
It's 2 of them.
It's 2 of them who probably wanted more than any one individual Warrior. Right? And you put them together. That's not nothing, right? You kind of have to worry about that. But in the end, PJ Tucker's gonna have to make some shots. The same problem the Warriors have with they're gonna have it in the playoffs because unless they're not scoring 70 points a game, Harden and Chris Paul. So Ariza's gonna have to make shots. PJ Tucker's gonna have to make shots. Eric Gordon, Ryan Anderson,
who doesn't make them against the Warriors.
Doesn't make it. So he's making them against everybody else now, but. Can they make shots? Can they defend like that? I think the Warriors don't really believe them, but at this point, you kind of have to take them seriously.
The way I look at it, big picture, maybe it's too big picture, but I looked at this. What beat the Warriors last year? It wasn't just Cleveland. It was Oklahoma City, then Cleveland. And if you give the Warriors a tough Western Conference Finals, or where anyway, they might run into tough second round if it's Oklahoma, with Oklahoma City. You wear them down. We see they can get worn down. They're not a young team. They don't have young players in big roles on this team. We'll see with Jordan Bell, but who knows with him. And if they got to go hammer and tong with
they got to go OKC second round,
and then Houston Rockets, and they're wobbling. And then they get through that, they survive that, and Cleveland is reborn with his new roster, or Boston's playing well, whichever way it works. That's going to be tough for them. And we've seen them when they were 2 years younger run out of gas against Cleveland. Again, a great Cleveland team. LeBron playing, otherworldly, which he still might do. That's always the factor with him. It still might just raise that game to some ridiculous level. That's where I think, if you're looking at just the context of this, having Houston there should worry the Warriors and Warriors fans because you get them. It's a multiplier.
This is year 4 too. Like having Houston on year 4 after you've done this 4 years in a row, and now it's late May again, and you're getting potentially the best James Harden has ever played in his life, the best Chris Paul has ever played. Like, it's going to take that to beat the Warriors, but it looks far more
and
plausible.
I just say, again, huge picture. I don't think this Houston thing is replicable like year after year after year.
This is like 2015-16 Warriors, I think.
Yeah. Do you think the Houston could play like this next year and the year after?
No. I think this is that flash in the pan, right? This is that one
this is
time.
Because Chris Paul is right at it. James Harden is younger than him, but he's not going. The wear and tear on him is going to build up. So, hey, the Warriors lose to Houston. Let's say they do. I'm not saying they are, but let's say the Warriors might win the next one and the next one and the next one. But this is one of those like Oklahoma City was in 2016. It's like just aimed right at them. It's like we're going to be the thing that you have to conquer right there, right in front of you.
That's totally geared to conquer them.
That's totally geared to conquer them. Play your way better than the way you play, by the way. It just is. And that's one of the interesting, and I've written about this, and you've written a little about this, how the Warriors might be at the end of not their run, but at the end of playing this way. They,
it's already
movement,
there.
The movement,
changed,
the
hoisting the threes.
The hoisting the threes. Like, they're not as good at it as the best teams right now, and they're really good. They got better players, but this is kind of the end of this sort of system, and maybe this sort of defense too, where they're switching everything because they're getting themselves in some bad mismatches. Teams know it; they understand. They've studied the Warriors for how many games? 365 games in 4 years. So this is all within this flow. It's an interesting time. Time to see the Rockets in this.
Man, you aren't getting sick
flow.
again. We've been sick on the podcast before.
It was years ago.
I was worried about
that.
you.
Was years ago.
Man.
That was years ago.
All right.
Who's been sick this year, by the way?
I'm always sick.
It's Marcus Thompson.
But I wasn't on my deathbed on the podcast. I was worried.
I was at another company. I'm healthier since then. But it is also true for like 3 straight podcasts, too.
Now you cough. It's like, hold on, what is that? But
cough drop right now.
One of the things that I think we should talk about as we are ripping apart the Warriors bench.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of need to revisit the offseason moves.
Yep.
They were widely praised, and, it looked great on paper. But Omri Caspi and Nick Young.
Although I had people yelling at me on Twitter that, you notice every time he plays more than 15 minutes, they win. Of course, that's always in garbage time when they're up by 25, but that's a whole other thing. Caspi's been not good. Not good. Young has been
up and down. Like he'll have a good game.
More down than up, but he's the possibility of him being up is still there. That's why Kerr started him in the third quarter, took Zaza out. But again, the centers, he didn't feel comfortable about Looney, didn't feel comfortable about McGee. He played them. If you take the David West minutes out, I think he played them like 10 minutes combined of center. Draymond had to play 19 minutes at center. They got some issues on the bench, and they did not fix them in the offseason. They thought they did. They paid some money for Nick Young, and you can't fault them for the ideas. The players just haven't played well, and maybe you can fault them for maybe they should have come up with other ideas. Are they not going to pick up any buyouts, Marcus? What have you heard about that?
I don't think anybody wants to come play for the Warriors. We were talking about this in the locker room. Durant, KD, me,
Andre.
Chris Haynes, Andre, we were debating about this. I think players look at the Warriors and do not see minutes. And in the end, you want minutes.
But there are minutes there.
There are, but they look and see this team. They got all it. Here's what everybody says. They have all these players. They have all this bench. And if you're not watching, you think, they got Iguodala and Livingston and Nick Young. If you're not watching, those names are just something. So you're looking like, I don't have any. Look at Joe Johnson, Marco Bellinelli, two players the Warriors liked. Both are like, nah.
I want to go to Sixers.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I think they're looking at, and then there's a money thing. Even though it's probably going to be the same.
Yeah, Joe Johnson picking Houston is like, Houston's got the same stuff. They got all these guys. I'm not sure.
I think Joe Johnson is looking like, look at the Rockets bench and be like, I'm playing over those guys. And look at the Warriors bench.
That's funny. It's an interesting take because all we've done is rip the bench. we see every game. Their fans go, "Oh my God, they got to get somebody." But I can see where players from the outside go, "Oh my God, they got guys there, and they got Durant working back into the second unit." Yet you talk about it, and you go, "I think Joe Johnson could have played 15 minutes a game with this team, like starting the first time he showed up." I think Bellinelli could have played 12. I mean, if you're playing Nick Young 14 and Caspi 3, you just wipe that out and give that to the next guy. But interesting that players might see that.
The players were thinking, like, if you want to win, what's the point of getting bought out if you want to win, right? If you want to get minutes, you stay on Sacramento, you get all kind of minutes. He's like, they want to win. But I'm like, you want to win, but you also want to win while you're playing, which is why David West came back, because there's a clear, defined role where you're playing. You don't want to win and you get in spot. Like JaVale McGee would prefer to play, right? I don't think who's going to say, let me go and be the 9th, 10th man on the Warriors and play 10 minutes. But I think that's how they see it. They look at a stacked roster. And in the end, especially come playoffs, they're probably right to think Livingston and Iguodala are going to play. Like, that's 2 spots off the bench right there. You're automatically coming in as the 8th man. Like, they're probably right to think that. You got to David West
nobody
is
dreams
8,
of being
9.
Nobody dreams of being Ian Clark. That's not the dream.
The guys they're going at, that's the role that's available. So it's probably going to take, like, there's no way Tyreek Evans takes that. Right? Lou Williams doesn't take that.
No.
Right? So that's who's going to take the Warriors' minimum salary.
Bellinelli, I always thought was the best option.
And he's like, nah, man.
I'm going to go Philly.
They're going to the playoffs, and I'm going to get minutes.
Might end up starting.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking. Dudes don't want to come in.
Interesting.
Like, Joe Johnson, I was like, okay, maybe. But he had a chance before and took the minutes. So I'm like, maybe Joe doesn't. But he's 37. If a guy's going to be okay with 10 minutes, it's the 37-year-old. And he's like,
that's the other thing is, like, I was talking to somebody about this. Like, do they realize that you might end up finishing the game over Iguodala? I mean, have you watched this?
They see that.
I guess, and it may not happen, but I can see Kerr looking to carve minutes out.
If you got Lou Williams, it's happening.
Yes,
Lou Williams is your 6th man. This is not a conversation. He's in that lineup. But, like, I don't know who's going to take the minutes.
It's pretty clear that they were checking, and their other guys might come free, but the big ones I think have come and gone, and this is what the Warriors have. I think they're relatively comfortable with that, but that's why I thought they might put the 1st-round pick in there to try to just trade for Bellinelli and make it not his choice. They were not giving up the 1st-round pick. They were not doing that, and I understand part of it. And they're very confident in their ability to pick a player. By the way, very confident in their ability to pick a player. And we'll see.
I think they missed on one.
Which one?
Jamal Crawford.
Oh, your guy.
I just feel like for real, what's the one thing you need off this bench?
You need scoring. You need playmaking.
And the reason you don't do it is because he can't defend, right?
And yet Nick Young ain't defending. They had some – Luke Walton sold them on a bill of goods on that one, that Nick Young was a willing and good defender, and that did not show up in training camp. Maybe didn't show up because he put on about 10.
Where's Rodney Stuckey?
Your guy. Is he in the league? Is he in the league?
Bring Monte back.
Marcus Thornton. Ramon
Jordan Crawford.
All my guys. All my favorite guys.
Line them up.
So how are you grading Bob Myers? In hindsight, haven't seen it play out. We saw the previous bench, right, which he basically said, these guys aren't it. Let's get some new guys, which means that bench wasn't the greatest, right?
Yeah.
And now you got number 2. How are you grading these last 2? I'll
put them all together. I think there really was a sense that they just wanted to keep their main guys, and it was good enough. That's Iguodala and that's Livingston. That's really, and they started with that, and then beyond that, they just needed guys to fill in here or there, and. Hey, I understand it. They were going to pay Iguodala. They just decided they're going to pay for the good of the locker room, for everything that he's done for them, for what he might still do again, because you still might end. Like, people said, oh, who cares about the guy who guards LeBron? He's not making it. LeBron is probably going to make the finals. You just have to make that equation. Andre Iguodala.
If he doesn't, you don't have that guy to guard him?
You're dead. You're done. Yeah. And even when you got the guy to guard him, it's not great every time. So just for that value, I understood. You didn't have to pay him for 3 years. You didn't have to pay him $16 million a year. They just made the decision. Sean Livingston, they made the same kind of decision for the good of the locker room, Also because they had nobody to replace these guys because they're over the cap. It's not like we'll get some other great guy. This was it. They had the bird rights to those two. They made a decision to pay them. They made a decision to pay them a little bit more than they had to. In Andre's case, a lot more than they had to. And I think that trickled down to, okay, then we got those guys. They play good defense. Let's just get Nick Young. He's a kind of good idea. It cost us $5.2. Hey, Durant gave us back $6 million. And Caspi's Kerr's kind of player. That's just his kind of guy. So if you understand the overall idea, I don't rip the overall idea. It's just each sort of piece. I'd take Sean out of this. I think Sean's played well. He's what he is. He's been forced in this role to go get shots on the second unit because no one else will do it. That's not his role. His role is a fill-in, glue, fill in here, fill in there, get you a shot there, mismatch over there, defend a lot of different people. But Iguodala, Caspi, and Nick Young are three guys they thought would fill solid roles, and that did not happen. So you can ding them for this. Although, let's see in the playoffs. But you can ding them for that. And this is, I think, the Iguodala deal, which is I understand why they did it, but it's the worst contract in the Bob Myers era. I would say it's the worst. It's the worst one. You could tell from the get. He probably knew it was. Joe Lacob probably knew it was.
It's a tax. But they pay the tax.
They just pay what it takes to make Andre happy for another year. And because they couldn't replace him. Again, I stress that point. That's why I don't rip them too. There was not like the money could go to Andre or X. No. You had his bird rights. It's the only reason they paid him this numbers because they could pay him whatever. It has to be your player to pay that number. So maybe if the problem is Pat McCaw has not risen up his game.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Maybe the problem is Jordan Bell got hurt. Maybe the problem.
Maybe they gave up on Ian Clark too soon.
Ian Clark soon. They need Ian Clark. Maybe they should bring Jordan Crawford back. No, hey, there's a lot of
Steve Blake.
Damian Jones, by the way, hasn't exactly knocked people over. So you can add all those things up. Each one hasn't quite hit, so it adds up to a big miss. But again, they're 44-14, and we're it's not the bench that's going to decide things. It's up to Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. You said it too, and none of them have played great this season. They've played well, but none of them played great.
Yeah, nobody's lights out,
no.
And I just think part of it is they just don't have the urgency to do it yet. Maybe it comes in the playoffs.
Draymond was urgent last night, by the way.
Draymond was amazing. Wow. He can get there when he needs to go there, which is probably the most comforting sight if you're a Warriors fan. Draymond, when he wants to, can be the defensive player of the year. When he summons it. The problem is he just has to summon it.
Yep.
Right? After all these games and all this time, he's got to say, hey, let's do it for this game. It's not just
and it helps when he's had the previous game.
Absolutely had the previous game. And, they haven't been major injuries, but they have had injuries, right? Steph Curry's missed time.
Yep.
Durant's missed time. Draymond's got shoulder. Yep. He's got knee.
Yep.
Not Jordan Bell,
McCaw now.
That's turning out to be pretty significant,
even
though it's gotten JaVale McGee back. But
fans are happy.
Right? So
they would just play JaVale McGee and Omri Caspi.
It's unbelievable.
40 minutes apiece.
How much of a shot blocking President JaVale McGee is, but once you put him in the pick and roll, he can never get to the shot.
No, he's just a step off.
He can't. He's got to be standing there waiting for you.
If you make him change directions, I think that's
he can't get to the shot.
Make a decision, change directions. He doesn't get there. He's around it, but he's not on top of it. And that's why he plays the minutes he plays. And that's why people aren't stepping up to trade for him when the Warriors made him available. There's reasons for these things. I do think, man, can you imagine if David West got hurt? Where they would be. And that's where we're at with this team, though. I mean, David West is a really, really important player. That second unit doesn't do anything without him.
You saying there are reasons for it, right? What are the reasons Zaza's still starting? Because they're giving up 40 points in the first quarter. So it's not like you can say it's defense. No. They're getting killed on the offensive boards.
It's like 26 in the first 6 minutes every time. Okay, here comes Zaza comes out.
Is it just Steve Kerr doesn't want to change?
Yeah. I mean, who's he going to start then? David
JaVale.
I don't think it would be much difference. I don't think he likes a sign that would give. And then what happens in the third quarter then? Zaza plays the first 4 or 5 minutes of the third quarter, and they're great.
I'm actually writing about that in the.
Good. Your editor's happy about that.
I'm actually writing about that. I don't know
because
if the upside beats the downside.
It's not just Zaza, but again, he's not been played. But your guy, number 30 in the first quarters,
he's terrible.
I don't know.
His numbers are bad. I
don't know what the deal there is.
I think part of it is I do think he's one of the most tired. He and Clay. Yep. Clay. Yep. Is getting beat off the dribble like he never gets beat before.
No, he's got to guard all the tough guys. Like somebody's ripping Steph to me last night. Look at Lillard and Westbrook. By the way, Clay's guarding those guys. Yes. Now, Steph's not guarding him for a reason because he's not as good a defender as Clay. But when you say Steph's getting torched, no, it's actually Clay's getting – and it's pick and roll. It's all the other things they're switching. But Clay is the initial defender on those guys.
No question. And he just doesn't have it right now. Yep. They're just getting by him super easy. I just think he's tired, but also I do feel like they approach games with all right, let's get Durant involved, let's run the offense, and I don't think that's good for a known ADHD guy like Steph Curry. Yep. I think you gotta be, and this is part of what I'm writing. You gotta almost help Steph that way. Because he's passive into games and he doesn't get any rhythm, and then he's kind of got to find his way. And I don't think mentally he's got it to just snap his fingers and do it. So you got to help him get there. But I don't know if Steve likes it.
But teams know this too. But they blitz him early. Question. They blitz Steph early, and that's why you see those turnovers.
Question.
I mean, I don't even know what the percentage is, but I bet you a high percentage of his turnovers are in the first quarter. High percentage, because that's when he just kind of he stops and he just flings it. He doesn't think about it, and
that's how they approach games. Yep. Let's just run it. The defense is not ready for what you're running, and let's make the pass. Let's take the shot.
The same pass and the same shot you've taken thousands of times now that defense have scouted. So that's another thing where I say they're going to have to change up what they do, and they know it. But to change it up in a major way, I think you're going to have to change a couple of players, and we'll see. Again, that's in the offseason, but I do think if there's anything the Warriors have convinced themselves about in a change sort of factor, it's this slump means that they are going to be even more aggressive this offseason. They still think they're plenty good enough to win it this year. But into the future years,
I don't think they believe.
Group
this year, future years, I think they're
this group is coming to the end of the playing like this with exactly this lineup. And you just look at, you're counting so much on David West, Andre Iguodala, and Sean Livingston. How many more years are you going to count on them? That's not the way a forward-looking team says, okay, we'll just go David West until his early 40s. I don't think they're going to do that. And if anything, this just pushes that forward. They're going to try to do something. I don't know if there's a lot they can do.
So right now, Tim Kawakami is saying that the Anthony Davis trade is happening this offseason. That's what I'm hearing.
Nah, that is not what I'm saying.
That's what I'm hearing.
Hey, listen, if it's up to the Warriors, it's happening. I'll put it that way. But I mean, it's probably not up to them, actually. It's probably up to Anthony Davis having to demand a trade. It's up to New Orleans finding the right, being willing to listen to that. And it's up to the teams finding the right answer. And none of those things might happen in the positive for the Warriors. But, man, are they looking – they're going to be looking at it. They are definitely going to be looking at it.
So, 46 of Curry's 134 turnovers in the first quarter.
Man, and he doesn't play a lot in the second and fourth.
That's a third.
The percentage minute by minute, man.
That's a third of his. Yeah,
that's a lot. And like last, I just looked up. It was first few minutes. I just said how many turnovers Steph's got? 4. Jeez, that's too much. That's way too much.
I think Kerr does the whole we run our system. If we run it right, it works.
Yep.
And the other teams are like, we know the system. Let's jump it. And I'm not sure they even want a counter at this point. I think they want a counter.
What, in May?
Yeah, let's pull it out in April. Let's come. Look, they're still one of the lowest pick and roll teams in the league.
Yep.
Still.
Yep.
And they have the best pick and roll the two highest points per possession pick and roll players in the NBA, and they don't run a pick and roll.
Yep.
So, and come playoffs, they're gonna run pick and roll.
They're gonna run pick and roll.
They're gonna run pick and roll. So, I think part of it is I think Kerr knows we're gonna throw. We got a couple wrinkles to throw. Zaza, how many minutes did Zaza play last night? 554.
And that's it. And that was in one stint.
One time. We're not we're not going back to you, buddy.
I literally was like, I swear, I said this on Twitter. They opened the second half, and I'm just listening to Walton, and I'm just. They're playing the game. Walton, and they go, wait a minute, Nick Young's out there. What the hell is this? As Nick Young started, they went small. Draymond started in the center. Zaza did not show up in the second half. I don't think Looney played in the second half. I don't think JaVale played in the second half. Right? It was just Draymond. No, there must have been somebody. But there must have been somebody to end the third quarter, right? They couldn't play Draymond at center the entire third quarter.
They didn't play him entire. No, did they?
They might have.
They played JaVale.
Okay. And then West, and then Draymond, and that's it. And interesting. I'll just say interesting that they're to this point where they got some centers that Kerr won't play in a tough game.
Can they work this stuff out in the first round? Like, can they?
Well, I was just talking to a senior consultant for a team that might be in the A slot. Clippers, this wouldn't be it wouldn't be a tough matchup for them. Portland theoretically would not be a tough matchup, so they could work some things out. But man, I don't know. These young teams are going to be hungry and be jumping everything too.
They don't want Denver.
Yeah, they don't want Denver. We'll see. But I think that second round is the one that everyone's saying they might want to maybe try to avoid Oklahoma City, like try to get the Spurs. If the Spurs are 3. You might want to be 2 to get the 2-3 matchup instead of get the 1-4.
That's the way it is now. Houston would get Oklahoma City in the bracket.
That's a brutal. That's one I don't love Oklahoma City. I don't think they're going to win the title. I don't think teams do not want to mess around.
Matchup. Warriors don't want to match up.
Paul George chasing Clay around is a problem for them. We've seen it twice. So it'll play out. I just think that. Those 4 players, I still think those 4 players are good enough to get through this. But if anyone gets dinged up in the playoffs, if anyone goes through a sustained funk, if Andre as that 5th guy isn't very good, there's going to be a lot of factors to say, okay, maybe I changed my mind. But right now, I'm still going with that.
So can we end this with we haven't done this in a while, but I think it's a great timing for it. We got a TK's going soft.
Oh, man. No, I don't think this is at all accurate, probably, but let's see what you got.
It's totally accurate. It's just not Warriors related. Guess who I saw having the chummy old time with Jed York, and then writes a column praising Jed York.
Let's see, who was that? I'm not sure who that was.
After 2 years of ripping Jed York?
More than 2 years. 2014.
14, yeah, so 3 years.
3.5 years.
Of ripping Jed York. Yeah. Next, is there a Trent Dilfer column coming? Trent Dilfer praise?
Anytime.
Is Robert
Rao, Chris Cohan.
Explain. I don't understand.
What's my slogan in journalism, Marcus Thompson?
When you win, you get praise.
Praise when good. Non-praise when not good. Any criticism that you take at somebody is less effective if people think you're not going to praise him or her when they're good. And any praise you make of somebody is less effective overall credibility-wise if you will not criticize them when they're bad. So I've always believed that my harshest criticism should also be ready to turn if they make better decisions. It doesn't mean the bad decisions go away. This is what I like. Oh, you go, Jed York, he's so great. Why'd you ever criticize him? No, the criticism was valid. But in the same way, the validity of it is even stronger if you see and recognize when he makes smarter moves. Now, he basically just paid people, but that's with the owner's discretion. Other people screw up like he did. They're fired. They're gone. Forget about it. Trent Baalke never going to get a GM job again. Jed York made bad decisions with Jim Harbaugh, with all these other things. But he said, okay, you know what? Let's just clear it out and let me hire the right guys. When he does that, you praise that. And I think the Warriors have gotten that. I think Jed York sort of understands that, and that's part of the Jed York and me back and forth. We're not buddies, but when things were good, I praised them, by the way. When things were bad and they made terrible decisions, I ripped them. Things are looking good again. They paid Jimmy Garoppolo. They got Kyle Shanahan. They've got John Lynch. I'm going to praise them.
All I know is this is a completely new world. We're writing for a digital powerhouse, apparently. And I had a Warriors person come up to me and ask me is Tim Kawakami okay? I saw his column about Jed York, and I'm like, I don't know what is happening. Dude has gone soft.
You were there for me and Jed too, right? You were walking.
I'm sitting there talking. I'm talking to Garoppolo's brothers. I look over, and they're just chatting. They're just chatting. I was like, whoa, no separation, nothing. I don't know. I figured since the dude owes you $2,000,
$2,100,
the beef might persist. But apparently, things are going so great with The Athletic. You're writing 6-month columns and chummy with Jed York.
Who knows what comes next?
I don't even know who you are anymore.
Who knows what comes next? Who knows?
I'm going to All-Star, and I'm staying at the Ritz-Carlton because you're not going to do anything about it.
It's all good. It's all good. Get a suite while you're at it. Get a suite. And go hug Bobby Rowell when he's there.
Oh, he'll be there. Warriors Plus Minus. We're out.
Yep.